Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, and still I rise. And I rise because I love my country. I rise today on a mission of mercy. I'm on a mission of mercy for people that I will likely never meet and greet. Perhaps by some fortuitous circumstance, I may encounter some of them. But I know not who they are currently in the sense that I know them personally. I rise on behalf of the many people who are seeking asylum. And I do so, Mr. Speaker, because it has been reported on many news stations, outlets, if you will, that our president intends to reinstate the family separation policy. I rise on a mission of mercy and I make an appeal to the most powerful man on the planet Earth. My appeal is that you would not, N-O-T, you would not reinstate this policy. I beseech you to please, Mr. President, treat these people the way you would want to be treated if you found yourself in similar circumstances. I beg that you would understand that separating babies from mothers is unacceptable by any standard that we know of. No one supports the notion of taking babies from their mothers, children from their parents. So I'm begging and pleading with the President of the United States of America, the most powerful man on earth. Please, Mr. President, do not reinstate this policy. I also appeal to my colleagues on both sides of the aisle to encourage the President to do the right thing, the just thing. If we are not pleased with the laws in this country, we have a means by which we can address the law. If we believe that something is unacceptable, there's a way for us to address it. And the way to address this problem is with immigration reform. So I beg the President and all of my colleagues on both sides of the aisle to please, let's try to resolve this with legislation. Let's not do what we have done and, quite frankly, have not atoned for. Some of the children are still not back with their parents who were separated previously. This is the United States of America. This is not what we do. We don't take children from their parents and then place them in places where we cannot find them such that we can reunite them. This is my appeal, Mr. President. And I make the appeal because as a member of Congress, I believe that at some point we're going to have to account for the actions that we engage in while we're here. I don't want it on my record that while I was in the Congress of the United States of America and I had the opportunity to at least speak to power, to speak truth to power and make an appeal on behalf of those who are among the least, the last, and the lost. I'm making my appeal. I'm doing what I can to help those who are fleeing harm's way. Mr. President, you don't have to do this, and I beg that members of both parties would please encourage him not to do so. This is a moment for us to reflect and a moment for us to demonstrate to the world that what we preach, we will practice. We have for years encouraged other countries to take in refugees. We have gone so far as to pay countries to take in refugees. We have funded countries to take in refugees. We ought to practice what we preach. And those who are not qualified should not come, should not be brought into our country. But I would also say this, we should not say to the world, go back. Refugees, asylum seekers, You're not welcome in the United States of America. This is not the country who would proclaim such a thing. Our laws we stand on, and I stand on those laws. I yield back the balance of my time.
Members are reminded